So we're here with a few guests to talk about how to engage your neighborhood around wildfire. I get this request all the time. And we've got a few people who are organizing or have organized their neighborhood. And I just wanted to take a minute to talk with Jane Crimmy. She is out at Monument Meadows, and then Christina Sims and Mark Head are working up in Glade Park currently. So thank you guys so much for joining me.
You're welcome.
I'm curious because everybody kind of gets started in a different place. What ended up kind of getting you to organizing your neighborhood in the first place?
Okay, I'll kick it off. So, initially discussions started around simple community awareness about some beetle kill that's going on in Glade Park with the increasing fuels and fire risk. So we initially shared the concern through our Glade Park community page and then formed our own fire mitigation page a couple months after that. So the problem was obviously shared by everybody on Glade Park, and a common thread of interest began from that communication. Bigger scope of the problem was definitely fire mitigation. But the emotional component of losing, thousands of 300-year-old trees was definitely shared as well. Discussion started around what could be done to manage and reduce fire risks. We looked into details around the beetle kill with the Forest Service, discussed what could be done. That took us toward grant discussions, nonprofits, programs available through the Forest Service and the BLM. After a few meetings with those groups, we were introduced to your team, Ellis, and learned about your coalition and what you guys were doing and what you had accomplished. And that was instrumental in navigating next steps on how to understand and create safe, dispensable space for your home. We felt like, like we weren't making a lot of progress, small steps for sure, but we're reminded that these kind of efforts just take time and dedication and persistence. So we're now working closely with Two Rivers with grant submittals, sharing of information, and just trying to make a difference. We'll accomplish quite a bit this winter, we are hoping, with the BLM and then helping property owners navigate solutions for reducing fuels and just becoming safer. That's how that kind of got started for us.
Yeah, and I'm just going to segue off that and just share personally, I got a little scared when the Glenwood Canyon lit up and the DeBeck fire. And instead of being part of the problem in Glade Park, I wanted to be part of the solution. I wanted people to know of the danger and know of ways that we could get around that and mitigate and make our homes safe. And then I also realized that there was just a major lack of knowledge about the Ips beetle itself and safe times to cut, to not further spread it. And so I joined Mark in the effort to really educate the community about when it's safe to cut, when it's not, and how to take those steps. And so I think with that, as landowners, we're personally responsible for the trees on our land, but a lot of times we don't have the resources that we need to solve our own problems. And so Mark and I saw that need in a really, really major way. And him and I met for about 6 months, one-on-one as just a small group, and then really realized we needed to branch out and see what the community needed. And so we held some community meetings where that was exactly what came out. We learned what neighborhoods were in jeopardy and what they needed our help with. And that's when we met you, Ellis. So that's, essentially my intro as far as where my heart's at with this is helping the community too.
And you guys were sharing with me earlier in the week, it started with a Facebook post from Mark on the community page, right?
Yeah, it did. He was posting all sorts of information and I was like, hey man, I'm a grant writer. Let's get together. We met at my office downtown and we just started to put our heads together to solve the problem.
Nice. Thank you. You guys touched on how it's not just wildfire, right? Like it's ecology and loving the land that you have and your forest health as well. And wildfire is just a piece that fits into that. I think we'll touch on that more later because I know Jane has some similar things in her neighborhood where it's, you know, maybe you start at wildfire, maybe you don't, maybe it's just a piece of the puzzle, but there's a lot that people have a lot of feelings about their trees and in all different directions. So we'll explore that. But Jane, yours is a little bit different. This is kind of something that you inherited. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, we have Monument Meadows has 64 homeowners, and we have almost 6 acres of open space. And so I had came on as I joined to be president of the HOA, and just because nobody else was stepping up, and I thought, well, I have the time, not really knowing. My husband's like, yeah, do it, you know.
Yeah.
What can it take? Well, so anyway, so yeah, and so I had stepped into about year 2 or maybe even 3 of a grant that was already in place to remove the tamarisk and the Russian olive, the invasive species, down at the open space. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting because when I came on board, everything was very contentious, and there were like a group of people at each spectrum, like people, you know, not wanting to cut down any more trees down there, and then you know, another few that were wanting to just keep going and just get rid of all the invasive species. And you know, as I went back and looked at the grant, I realized that the BLM grant, which was I think about $35,000 initially, it was given under the Community Fire and Hazardous Fuels Reduction Program. So it was, I mean, it was like 2-pronged, like one to remove the invasive species, but another to reduce, you know, the wildfire threat to our homes and our properties. So, and that kind of had gotten lost. So I kind of glommed onto that and just started to try to focus on that.
Nice. Well, thank you. I had the pleasure of being at Monument Meadows' first HOA meeting when they were considering the grant. And this was 4 or 5 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And it was contentious then, but I think, you know, someone, you're probably the former president, maybe the board for the HOA, realized the fire risk. I don't know how they came upon that, if it was online, if somebody told them, if they recognized it on their own, but somebody had started taking action and successfully moved through that grant process with some help from the BLM, who's one of our partners. And
yes,
we're really, you know, our entire neighborhood ambassador program, which is meant to support neighborhoods that want to organize, is actually kind of modeled off of your HOA. And so thank you for picking up the torch. And
oh, wow. Good to know.
Keeping it going.
Glad of it.
As somebody who's kind of working in your neighborhood now and getting folks engaged in whether it's the open space or protecting their own land and their homes, what do you feel like some personality traits you bring to the table are to make you successful? I know you're all humble, but please take a second to just kind of share, you know, what you have that has helped you be successful.
Well, I mean, I don't know about success, but yeah, maybe I was a little naive, but I mean, I just really, you know, I had been retired and I wanted just the corny thing. I would just had the time, and I just wanted to get back. And because I really do love this neighborhood, and, you know, so that's why I, you know, volunteered to be, you know, the president of the HOA. And then sometime after that, you know, but, you know, you approached me and Betty, our treasurer, secretary, and, you know, and told us about the ambassador program. And so I, you know, and my dad was a fireman, and, you know, so I thought that would be a good nod to him. So, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think, yeah, time is a huge component, right? and willingness to give back, because that's what will keep you going long term too. Mark and Christina, what about you guys?
Christina, you want to take that one?
Okay, sure. So I was thinking an attitude needed, whether this is between Mark and I or for anyone that's ever interested in engaging their community, you need to be a people person, someone who can communicate well with people and someone who has some grit. You can't give up when the going gets hard, because not everybody's going to be on board with your mission, but that's okay. You're still doing really great work anyways, right? And you make a ripple effect. And so it's like being mentally strong and knowing that. I would say this particularly about Mark is that being very solution oriented. So we hear problems that people have, and instead of, just being like, oh man, I'm sorry, that's a problem. Instead, we connect them with an idea or a resource or a person that helps them. So having that, connective personality is really an asset in this type of work. But more so than that, I think being a good listener is important, because everybody's coming from their own personal standpoint on this. And our job is really just to help them. And so listening and providing a solution, I think that's where both Mark and I are really strong. And we're both growing in our patience too. So we're growing in that.
Yeah. One of the things both of your neighborhoods have going for you. So Jane, you mentioned Betty, who's not here tonight, but you've got a backup person, a second person, that you're not the only one leading the charge, because you deserve a vacation, or to, go out and have fun for a while and not think about wildfire in your neighborhood. Mark, you have anything to add to that?
I just think a common interest and goal just brings right-minded people together.
Yeah.
We try to avoid, the opinionated people that want to talk about government or politics or things like that. We just kind of try and stay to the task, and just don't really engage in combative discussions like that. We just stick to it, get things done.
Yep. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Another kind of common thing for you guys that I'll brag on all of you about is your ability to listen. And you mentioned that. So, Jane stepping into a situation where you're like, oh, we've got this grant and there's people that have a lot of feelings about this, and maybe the willingness to learn as well. That, Jane, you went to the grant, and Christina and Mark, you guys immediately brought in all of the experts, like the cavalry of experts, to come educate your community, and Jane kind of same thing.
Yeah.
I think you're open-minded, you're willing to listen, not combative, like Mark says. That's a big component of it. There's a surprising, like I said, there's a surprising lot of feelings about trees. And you will get people that feel very strongly about it, but just being able to listen, understand their perspective, and connect them with the right resource, and provide the right education to them too. So as you guys have been kind of organizing your neighborhood, you're passionate, you're a good listener, you're connecting with resources, you're learning. What kind of logistical things have helped you start? So Mark and Christina, I know you guys said you decided to have a meeting. If you can tell us a little bit about that and just communication in general.
You start, and then I'll bring up the rear on it.
Okay, yeah, I've been wrote pages of notes for this, you guys, so pardon me.
I know that you did. For sure.
I did. I have a pad of paper I'm going to read from, but
prepared and organized is also a trait that makes you successful.
Organized helps, yeah. Expert organizational planner, that helps. But so Mark and I, logistically, we decided that we were a good working unit, and together, instead of having a huge board of people, that we would start as a small unit and be really, really strong, and then bring in help when it was needed. So that's when we turn to the experts. And then that will be where we turn to our community when it's time for action. We'll turn for more help, for evacuation planning, whatever else is needed. So we started with a small group so we could be on the same page. And I think that was really important. And then from that, it allowed us to get a lot of other groups on the same page, like the BLM, like the Conservation Trust, like Colorado State Forestry and Two Rivers Fire Coalition, the Glade Park Fire Department. Because we were on the same page, they all were quickly on the same page. So that was helpful. We did 4 different meetings that I can recall. 2 were community-centered meetings and 2 were individual meetings that we kind of dwindled down some participants to. From our first meeting, we had BLM there and we went to go do site visits. And what we noticed at that time was there was a pilot group that showed up right away. For us, that happened to be Miller Canyon Ranch. Over 50% of the participants that signed up for our very first meeting were from Miller Canyon Ranch. And so in going and viewing their properties with the authorities and with everybody that are experts in this field, we saw the need there. So for our second community meeting, we decided to not only invite those people, but the entire community. And we did that through Facebook posts. We did that through flyers at our local post office and Glade Park store. And we called the masses. We contacted 2 really connected people in Glade Park, Mercedes Cameron and the Walker family. And through that, they brought the masses to our meeting between our posts and everything. And I looked at our sign up sheet today and we had 42 households show up to that second meeting that we hosted. Yeah, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. But what's even better than that is we were able to capture metrics, contact information, and we had a question on the sign-in sheet which said, what is your beetle kill like? What problems are you facing? And, you know, in sitting down with you, determining where do we start with this pilot group, it was really easy to see from those survey responses that ingress and egress at Miller Canyon needed addressed. And so we jumped on it as our first pilot program, first of many. And we have a lot of great ideas going forward too, you know, for other groups. So yeah, Mark, take it away, bud.
Oh, I got nothing on top of that. You hit all the points that I have as well. I mean, having a community center that's that accessible and, you know, easy to set up and, you know, makes it simple to get everybody together for sure. You know, not everybody is going to have those kind of resources. So we're fortunate to have that for sure. Facebook page is nice. Our Facebook page is good. You know, we need to probably post a bit more than we are now, but you know, we're moving forward on some things for sure. But
yeah, so you guys had each other. You have a place to meet. You got some well-connected people in your community together. You collected emails and contact information and understood what the issues were, and you set up a communication tool. Is that it?
Yes, ma'am. You nailed it.
Awesome. And then Jane, you walked into some similar things, but please share, because your structure is a little bit different. You've got an HOA already. You're not dealing
Right.
with this.
Yeah. And yeah, I was lucky. And with that HOA comes, you know, just about like 95% of those people have emails, and there's a whole group email, you know, set up anytime, you know, we need to get out any kind of notices or notifications or anything. Yeah, we just, we use that email structure. Yep. And yeah, so that was really easy. And a point you made earlier about and then one thing too was, as far as logistics go, it's just when we were going to have little meetings or down at the open space or walkthroughs, maybe to tag some trees or flag them or whatever, you know, it finally dawned on us to maybe have some of those or most of those in the evening so that the people working during the day could attend and do that. And so we did that, and you know, and that helped. And then as far as, I think you all made the point about, you know, using the experts, because, you know, right away, well, Patrick Kieran with the BLM, we had him speak in March at our HOA meeting, and I think that really helped open up some eyes. and also like when he and you, Ellis, and like some people from River's Edge West and,
Mhm.
you know, have been on our walkthroughs. And that way, you know, the information is coming from experts and, you know, not like just from me or Betty or whatever, you know.
Right.
So, I mean, that, you know, that just really makes sense. So.
I think, you know, with all the opinions that come to the table on that, having those experts come in, whether it's fuels or forests or river habitat, whatever it is, takes the opinion out of it, and it
Right.
also takes the ownership and kind of the pressure off of you a little bit to deliver. You would
Yeah.
say the same things, but you don't have to if you bring in an expert.
Right.
That, you know, then it's not just Jane or Christina or Mark making those points. Jane, you mentioned, and we haven't done this yet in your neighborhood, but you mentioned something coming up that you might have an opportunity in terms of logistics to get people engaged. And if it's okay, just share a little bit about that.
Oh, well, last year we started just an HOA wide, sort of like a end of summer barbecue. And it was just in the neighborhood and it was well attended. We had it like in October. I don't know why, but so hopefully, you know, with all this going on now and with the ambassador program and everything, you know, I'm looking more to have our next one, you know, maybe the end of August or something. And you know, and as you, and, you know, it's just a get together for fun and everything. But, you know, as you mentioned, Ellis, I mean, I have a sense of urgency in a way to get the information out, but I don't want to cram it down people's throats,
Yeah.
you know, so maybe I have, you know, like a few brochures there or something, you know, like next to the food table, or, you know, maybe I have like a go bag or something, you know,
Yeah.
like this is what a go bag looks like for evacuation.
Yep.
You know, just stuff like that.
I like that. Food is a great way to get people together.
Mhm.
Hot dogs are very cheap, even with inflation. And yeah, I don't think you want to turn something fun like that into something very, very serious, but
No.
it's an opportunity where people are together breaking bread, and it's a good time to share information if they want it.
Yep.
You know?
Can I say something, Ellis?
Yeah, please.
So a couple months ago, Mark and I got invited to a specialty barbecue in Glade Park, the Glade Park Supper Club, with the intention of meeting people and just talking about this and kind of spreading the knowledge of what we were doing. And from that, we've got more interested people for a non-HOA group that we want to focus on next year. You know, so those community get-togethers, I'll tell you, even though it's like really lax on Mark, I mean, it was totally chill. We're eating ribs and drinking beer, and it's totally chill. But nonetheless, it transpired into more people in Miller Canyon getting excited and more residents outside of Miller Canyon saying like, "Hey, when's my turn? Like, what about us?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's our next hill to conquer. But yeah, barbecues are awesome, Jane. I'm all for them.
I think too, just before we started tonight, I had a colleague saying like, you know, how do you reach the person like me who's not on social media and doesn't watch TV, and well, maybe at a barbecue, right? With some hot dogs and hamburgers, and a beer. it's not all bad. Okay, so this is the fun question. What makes organizing a neighborhood challenging? And I will start, and I'll share a little bit that's in common, and that is just the energy and effort required to organize. I think the relentless optimism and personalities. But if you guys will share, you know, just a little bit about what's made that challenging for you in this journey.
Mhm.
Jane, you want to start us out? I think.
Sure. Yeah, you know, it's just that apathy that, you know, it's just kind of, you feel like you're hitting a brick wall. But, you know, because we had a small committee too that of about, oh, maybe there were like 8 of us or something. But, you know, when it came time, you know, maybe to go down and flag trees or something, there were like maybe 3 of us, or, you know, I mean, so it was just like that. And so Was I thinking about that? And obviously, you know, I realized, like, with the fire danger, there's a lot of, oh, it will never happen here. And I just, you know, and I'm kind of astounded by that, you know, by that attitude, especially after we've seen, you know, the last couple of years, things that have been happening around the state. And so there again, I guess I have to go back to, you know, like the experts and, you know, the people in the know, and they can, you know, and they have evidence, and whether it's a slideshow or, you know, booklets or pamphlets or whatever, you know, just relying on that. And as part of being an ambassador, I did send out like an HOA-wide, you know, letter, a notification. And, you know, I talked about, you know, evacuations and getting, you know, notices on your phone and things like that. So, but I mean, I was surprised because, you know, out of 60 some emails that went out, the only person I heard from was Betty, the treasurer secretary.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, well, you know, it's a building thing.
It is. We got a lot of crickets when we were starting too,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it takes a minute for sure.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and you know, one of our biggest pinch points is Glade Park is a big neighborhood.
Yeah, wide
So,
spread out.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
are a lot of people up here, and you know, they're challenge. It was challenging, you know, getting the communication out and identifying the people that we needed to be on our team and part of our team and a resource for sure. So, and that continues. That doesn't
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah. Mhm.
I think, Jane, too, you within your HOA structure, so you've got HOA meetings and there's a board that makes choices, and kind of with just how your open space was laid out, it affected everybody, because that was a space that everybody shared. And I think you all had and maybe continue to have people that don't want that work being done in the open space, or people that really do, and kind of navigating those social differences between the two.
Yeah.
At that first meeting, I know you all had a neighbor that was very vocally against it.
Yes.
Didn't like it at all, and you all kept bringing in experts and kept coming back to the fire risk when people were
Yeah.
worried about, you know, bird habitat. It's like, well, we're not cutting
Yeah.
all of the trees, and we are working with, you know, consultants about this type of habitat to make sure we're keeping habitat in place, but
Mhm.
we're also addressing the fire risk and talking about risk to homes. I think you guys did a really good job with that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Mark and Christina, what are the things that have been challenging for you guys?
All right, I'll talk a little bit on this one. So Mark nailed it on the head when he said defining like our pilot community was difficult, because the truth is everyone needs help and everyone deserves help. And so we had to start smart, and that's why we did it with data and safety in mind first. So that was the first kind of hurdle, was who gets it, who doesn't get it, why, and when is their turn. And, you know, we're still addressing who's next. We also had a bit of a struggle connecting with people in general, getting them to show up. But then I realized we had, you know, over 40 people, or over 40 households show up to a meeting. So I don't think we did too bad. It's just those people in Glade Park that don't have internet, don't have TV, and maybe go to the mailbox like once a week, maybe. It's hard to reach them. And so we need to think of some creative ways to do so that everybody's educated about this. And then currently we face some differences in the type of mitigation that our community needs. Some people need ingress, egress, some people need defensible space. And so just kind of differentiating who gets what and what's the priority. I noticed we had a lot of discussions centered around that. And for me, the biggest challenge has been just the dissemination of information and education. We have hosted 2 community meetings educating the people about IPS beetle and beetle kill. And we've shared webinars and things like that. But yet, unfortunately, there are still people cutting down trees right now in the middle of the summer that are affected. And so that's my biggest pain point, is that there is education and knowledge available for these people to not be making those poor choices that actually end up affecting all of us. And so I really want to work on getting that information out to the individual landowners so they know when it is safe to cut and when they're just going to attract more beetles to their land and their neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, those have been challenges. And the last one is in Glade Park, they were worried that the government was going to come on their land. Okay. And I might sound strange, but Mark and I had to assure our community that we are a group of volunteers and that we hire private local contractors to do this work.
Mhm.
And that put a lot of people at ease, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's
Thank
a big
you.
one. Knowing
Yeah.
your community.
Oh, yeah.
Mark, anything to add to that?
Yeah, we're going to have to continue brainstorming on how to reach the people, even more than we have today. And that could be mass mailings. It could be just more posts on the page, barbecues, another group meeting. So, yep, lots to be done still, for sure.
Yeah. I hear organizing and communication as a common theme. And then I would congratulate you all to just the resiliency that you have to face those challenges of like, oh, we've got, 5% of our neighborhood here, or we're not, people don't believe that beetle kill's a problem, or they think we're the big government coming in on their land and telling them what to do, whatever it is. Meeting those setbacks and continuing forward and improving based on those. I think that's pretty amazing. So have you found ways in kind of digging into those challenges, have you found any ways in particular that have helped you engage folks that were maybe disinterested or wary or not sure or disagreed with fire mitigation or preparation? Or are we still working on that?
Yeah, that's kind of a work in progress for sure. I think we need to, get established a little bit more and get a few wins under our belt and, really start making a difference. And I think other people will see that and, they'll want to be part of that for sure. But yeah, I think that's just going to take time. Lead a horse to water, right? But
yeah, proof is in the pudding, and there's risk in being the first people to kind of get involved and sign up, right? There's the early adopters and then the regular adopters and late adopters, and knowing that not everybody's going to be on board first thing.
Yeah. I thought, you can't win them all in this deal. So you can't go into it thinking that you can, and that action is contagious and that results, proof is in the pudding. And so we believe that with the good work that we're doing with Miller Canyon, that will spread and will show, number one, how much more aesthetically pleasing it is, which I know some of us care about. And number two, how much safer it is. And so, at the beginning of this call, I said the most important feature that, Mark and I had was that we were listening to people. We haven't really had to tell anybody what for, because we've simply just listened to them and then offered expert advice, from experts, and left it at that. I've maybe had 3 people give me any kind of flack at all, and it's only been about like, how much is this going to cost me?
Right.
Basically. And
that's a valid question.
Yeah, once they find out it's, so low because we have done this work to get this grant and to help with that funding, that seemed to take a lot of the contentiousness away.
Well, I had something, it kind of turned out, it was serendipitous a little bit this summer. We thought we had a tree cutter lined up to come up down and to the open space and cut trees, for several days or whatever this summer. And his equipment broke down, and he's like 90 days out for parts, and, with supply chain issues and everything. So, and we've got this grant and we're kind of committed to do, work each season. And so again, the email network, Betty sent out an HOA-wide sort of emergency notice that, we needed to line up a tree cutter, a certified whatever. And so, we talked to maybe half a dozen or whatever. And it really works to our benefit, because some of those like tree huggers, if you will, they had used, I don't know if I need to even mention the name, but, it's a good company in town. And they had, several of them had used him or this company in their private, on their residences, on their private property, and it turns out that, so they were like all for him, because they knew he was professional, they liked what he did and everything. So that kind of worked in our favor. And it's like, oh, okay, if he's going to be doing it, then it's okay.
Right. Yeah. I don't like cutting trees, but I like this person cutting trees.
Yeah. I don't know.
That works. That's good.
It worked.
And then Jane, you had something else when we went out to flag trees. I think it was like the middle of the day, and you had maybe 8 or 10 people show up, and you were looking for more than that. So how did you kind of overcome that little hurdle?
Oh, that's, I think, when, that it's like, okay, the next meeting is going to be, like at 6 o'clock or something. I think that's when we decided that. Yeah. And then Betty had suggested too, because a lot of people, like, they won't even check their emails. So I should have started like texting, people. And actually I'm going to start to maybe do that now, because some people are texters and, some aren't, are more emails. So that's one thing, that I've kind of tucked away for.
Christina, we should think about maybe a group texting program maybe, and see if we can't make some progress with that. I think that's a great idea.
Absolutely. I'm in.
I'm in. But I think too, Jane, with the changing the time, what maybe was perceived as disinterest at first is like, oh, wait, no, maybe they just can't make it, and we need to do something at a different time.
Right. But then we've got like all you experts, coming out, staying out after work and staying late.
Okay, that's our job. We're happy to help. Like,
it sends a message. It does.
Yeah, in it to win it. For the community, and wildfire doesn't keep bankers' hours, so like,
no,
we don't get to either. The last question I have for you guys is, and we've talked about it a little bit, but just generally, we've been involved kind of as a group for maybe 6 or 8 months at this point together. How has being involved with the coalition helped you in organizing your community?
I think Christina waved her hand there.
Oh, I'm just saying, it's helped us. Like, wow is 100%. My response.
Yeah.
Wow is my response. Because Mark and I were just a group of 2 people who really wanted something to happen. And then we met you and something did happen, right? So that's the biggest pivot point, was that before, not discounting our ability, but, we needed you. There was so much that you did, from materials that you provided, education that you helped teach. I mean, I'm grateful for Cami and PK and you for all of the information that you have shared. It's huge, and people need to know it. The communication has been really great. The different presentations you've created for whether it be the land trust meetings or our meetings, they've been helpful. But the biggest gap that you helped us fill was the funding. That has been the biggest pain point, I think, is where are we going to get this money? This needs to be done. And here you guys having an X amount that we can dedicate to this has made all the difference. So thank you.
And fingers crossed still for that funding.
Well, of course, but nonetheless, I mean, we're moving on up.
Yeah, the other thing is we're going to keep fighting for that funding and demonstrate success, and hopefully what we do in Glade Park and what Monument Meadows continues to do will kind of you're laying the groundwork for future success for future neighborhoods. So thank you.
Sure.
Jane and Mark, anything to add to that?
Well, that last question was, I read it as like, how is this help me personally. And I, you know, and I realized when I put out that notice, you know, about things to do, and, you know, in there I had, you know, contact your neighbor, you know, see, you know, make sure they're aware of, you know, the plans and the evacuation protocol and so forth. And so I thought, well, I better, you know, put my money where my mouth is. So, you know, I did go over, and I met an elderly neighbor, you know, and talked with her daughter, and, you know, made sure that her daughter had the information, you know, and so, and then also, we haven't touched on this, but, you know, PK and Ellis, we did with me, we went on the neighborhood Firewise risk assessment. We did a drive around in the neighborhood, and, you know, hopefully that'll come into play, you know, in the near future. But, you know, and so that gives us an idea of, like, you know, well, what's happening, like, you know, from the walls of your property, you know, 5 feet out, you know, 30 feet out, whatever. And, you know, but of course you can't see into people's backyards, and I'm like one of the worst, you know, so I thought I need to clean up, you know, we have all this remodel stuff out there, and that's a real fire hazard. I need to get going on it, you know, so, you know.
Lead by example. Yeah.
I have to.
That's
so
awesome.
It's a fire under me.
Good. Good. Thank you for sharing that. Mark, you got anything to add?
Nope, that's it. Just a wealth of knowledge. We've gained so much from Two Rivers and you and PK and Cami and everybody involved. So, and, you know, we'll continue to learn more.
Yeah.
The more we stay engaged with you guys.
Well, and I thank you guys too. You know, we have this group of experts. You've heard about PK and Cami and, you know, Pete and Rich. We've all kind of contributed to this, but we learn from you too about what the issues are. And by doing those drive-throughs and those neighborhood assessments, even on the technical side of things, we can get into a property and be like, oh, okay, I had this idea of what it was, but this is what's actually going on. And maybe it's better, maybe it's worse, but that listening component has been big for our organizations too. So thank you for helping us do that. Cool. Do you guys have anything to add before we sign it off?
Thank you so much, Ellis.
Thank you.
Appreciate you doing this. Keep doing the learning networks. They're fun.
I appreciate it. And thank you guys for taking time tonight.
Okay.
Take care. Bye.